to admit this one as well. Yeah, I'll just start off by saying, obviously, learning and reflecting on last season, it was an incredible season for us, albeit we were disappointed not to make the championship final. But I thought we competed really well, and it's the same with any other club that I've been involved in. You have to evolve. You have to make sure that you strengthen. You have to make sure that your squad is ready to compete in the next season. So we've had some changes to our roster. Obviously, we've let some people go, and that's the hardest part of my job, is making those decisions and letting those people go, because you make relationships with those people. But we've given them as much support as we can, and given them an exit plan, etc., and tried to help them as much as possible. And now we're looking at obviously who we can bring in. Really pleased with the signing of Rachel Hill, and really pleased with the signing of Dani Colaprico. I think they'll really add a lot of experience to our squad. We've got a young squad. Some of our players are still quite inexperienced in the NWSL. So really pleased with them, and we're still in the market to make more signings.
Okay, we're going to open up for questions now. Does anyone have a question for Casey? Okay, Steph, if you want to go first.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Casey. Hope you're getting at least some rest in the off season. I was just wondering, obviously Dani Colaprico is quite a known player in NWSL at this point. I'm just wondering what you saw from her in the midfield that you think is going to mesh particularly well with your midfield as it exists so far.
Yeah, I think something that, we've reviewed and learned is we'd like to possess the ball a lot more. I think we've got different ways of playing. I think we showed that last year. We can go round, we can go through, and we can go over. I'd like us to possess the ball more. I think the way she plays and dictates the game, and, a passing game, and her game awareness and understanding, I think is something that will really add to our midfield.
Thanks, Coach.
Annie.
Hi, Coach. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I just wondered what the conversations were like, and if you can elaborate on them at all with Rachel and Dani and bringing them to San Diego.
Yeah, obviously I don't sign players unless I've spoke to them personally. So I made sure that I was on both those calls. My first question to them is always like, what do you want out of a club? What do you want to achieve? And then try and spell out what I think we can help them with, because for me, it's about maximizing every player's potential. And I'm a coach. I'm a passionate coach. I like developing players. I like working with players, and I could see areas of the game that I feel that we could improve. They wanted to be, at a club where they can compete and they can develop, and both of them felt that this was the right place for them. So I was really pleased when they both came back and said yes. All I can do is speak about the club, what we want to do, what we want to achieve. But I also say to all players that I speak to, I'm going to sell the club to you. Go and speak to the players that are in our environment. Go and find out what you're coming into. And they both did that, and obviously liked what they heard, and they're with us now. So it's great.
And then just a quick follow-up. Obviously, Dani's one of the Red Stars' longest tenured players. So I'm just curious if you felt that was a long shot in getting her in San Diego, or like how you could describe, taking a player who obviously was open to free agency, but yeah, her coming to San Diego after a long career in Chicago.
Yeah, definitely thought it was a long shot, but it was a shot worth taking for me, because she was a free agent. That does change the game for players and for clubs. You can talk to them, which is helpful. I believe every player should be a free agent, and that's my belief. So I was pleased to be able to speak to her. I knew that it would probably take a lot to try and persuade her. I think it's a big change. And I always say, when a player is making a change, it has to be right for them on every level. And if it's not right, then they should make the decision, because we're going to stretch players, we're going to develop them, we're going to support them, we're going to do all the things that they want, but it has to be right for them. And she felt this was the right place for her.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Alicia.
Thank you. Hi, Casey. Thanks for your time. I was wondering, as far as additional targets, are there specific positions that you're looking to address in this offseason?
Yeah, we've got several positions we're looking to strengthen. We know we've got a good roster, but we want to strengthen. We want to have more depth to our squad, a little bit more experience in our squad. So I won't speak specifically about those positions, but I'll just say there's probably several that we're trying to target right now.
And then as far as this next season, it's going to be a little bit different, I guess, in some ways similar, in some ways different with the World Cup happening. So I imagine that comes into play as far as your preparations for the roster for next season.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be a consideration every year because whether you've got a World Cup or an Olympics or just FIFA windows, players are going to be missing for significant periods of time. So we have to plan our roster accordingly. We have to make sure that we've got enough strength in depth when we are missing our national team players, because I always hope they get picked, because I think it's a pinnacle of your career to play for your country. So, I hope they get picked. It's a bonus for me if they don't, but I hope they do. And we have to plan and make sure that we've got enough strength around those areas to cover for when they're away.
Last one from me, as far as having the benefit of some time to reflect on the first season, what are your big takeaways from, the debut season of this club and being in the NWSL for you?
Yeah, I think consistency is key. I thought we lacked a little bit of consistency towards the end of the season. But having said that, I can't complain too much about an inaugural season and finishing third, getting to a semi-final playoff, but key moments in those games, cost us in that, especially in that semi-final. So things to work on massively, things to improve. It's a very transitional league, so that's something that we need to continue to work on. And we also need to make sure that we value the ball a lot more, because then it becomes less transitional. When you've got the ball, the opposition can't hurt you. So much learning for me about my players, about the way we need to play within this league, and but also the appetite for growth here is phenomenal.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And more.
Hi, Casey.
Hi.
Hi. I'm glad to say hello again. And I just want to ask, what are your new standards for the next seasons?
I think that's something I set with the players when we come back in. It's not something I set as a head coach. It's players drive that, and I think they have to be engaged in it because it's them that has to do the work. So nothing's been talked about yet until the players return, until we've got our roster set. And come February, we'll discuss that and set our standards and our targets for next season.
Okay, and Casey, we saw that Katie Johnson is out of the team. What can you say about she? Why is she out of the team?
I can't speak highly enough of Katie. It just didn't work here for her. I hope that it works somewhere else for her. I think she's got a very bright eye to the game. It just wasn't right here. She wasn't going to play enough games, and at this point in her career, she needs to go somewhere where she's going to play more consistently.
In case a question about the men's sport, what do you think about England in the World Cup? Do you think they can bring it home?
Well, yeah, I've just been watching Brazil. They'll be a difficult task to beat. But yeah, listen, they got a really difficult game against France. France are a very, very good team. But I think if they can beat France, there's no reason why they can't go all the way and win the World Cup.
And also about the MLS, what can you say having a team from the MLS in San Diego? The MLS commissioner said that this could be possible, especially because of the answer that fans had with San Diego Wave. What does this mean for you?
Well, I think it shows that this is a community that is thirsty for sport. The support we've had has been incredible. So if an MLS team comes here, I'm sure they'll find that same support. But we'll wait and see if that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Stephanie.
Hi, Coach.
Hi.
I have two questions. The first of which is that Danny Colaprico was a huge coup. And what do you think makes the San Diego Wave an attractive team to play for?
I think it's still a little bit of a blank canvas, which is exciting. I think a player can come here and embed themselves. I'd like to think we've created a really positive development environment for players. And I think that pays forward when players hear about, what our environment is like and how safe people feel, how much fun they have and how much coaching they get. I think that pays forward. And I constantly want to improve players, and I said that to Danny. I want her to really maximize her potential, and I want to be able to be the one that helps her.
Right. And my second question is that I saw that you were doing commentary for FIFA for the current Men's World Cup, and I just wanted to know what that experience has been like for you, and how do you rate England's prospects for not only the Men's World Cup, but for the Women's World Cup next year?
Yeah, as an experience for me as a coach, it was great because I got to watch 8 different games, I think 16 different teams tactically. So it was really good for me as a coach to watch and see how games played out and how I might change things if I was a coach of any of those teams. And obviously it was a really positive experience. What was the second part of your question?
How would you rate England's prospects for the Men's World Cup and for the Women's World Cup next year?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the men, I think people are talking them down, which I actually think is a good thing. And I think they're obviously got a very difficult quarterfinal against France. But I think if they can win that, there's no reason why they can't go on and bring the World Cup home. But there's some fantastic teams in this tournament. It's going to take a hell of a lot to win it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jackie.
Thank you. Hey Casey, appreciate your time today. Had just two questions for you here, but I know you were talking about just some of the consistency pieces in just where you're at with things. And so just want to get your thoughts on how you hope to just kind of fill in some of those pieces, either with some of these new signings or just time that you have in the off season. I know it's still kind of busy for you.
Yeah, I think it's about time. I think I'm impatient as a coach. So yeah, like we continue to grow and learn. We've only really had probably 9 months on the field together, all in all, as a group of staff and players. So bringing in new additions will help because it will bring more experience into the group. I think obviously continuing to work with the players that we've got. We had 9 rookies in our team last year in our squad. So, you know, they're still learning and embedding and finding out the way we want to play, as well as the players that are here, you know, embedding the style and the philosophy that we want to play. And that will continue to evolve as we go along and as we get more time on the grass. We work through pre-season is going to be really important for us, an important 6 weeks where we can get a lot of detail and a lot of work into the players.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that too, I know there are obviously adjustments in the NWSL playing schedule for next year. Just how do you kind of see that impacting your team's success, just as you kind of have to adjust in that way too?
Yeah, it's not easy. I think Kansas showed when they went for a run of international through the breaks, picking up lots of points, is because they hardly had anyone missing. You know, I don't think they had. I think they might have had one missing at certain times, and so they managed to have some consistency. So it's making sure that we can still be consistent in those moments, that we can pick up points at home and on the road. And yeah, I think we dropped points arguably when we probably shouldn't have. So it's about our mentality, it's about our approach, and it's about making sure that I pick the right team and I set the right game plan, because when we lose, the responsibility lies with me. So I need to make sure that I'm on the top of my game to make sure the team can get the points that they need.
For sure. Well, appreciate you so much. And yeah, wishing you the best in the off season.
Thank you.
Joey.
Hey, Casey. My first question is, we talked a little bit about Danny, and I'm wondering what you think or why you're interested in Rachel Hill and bringing her to this team.
Well, yeah, I've watched Rachel since I watched the final the previous year. I think she's got extraordinary athleticism. I think she's very adaptable as well. I think she's obviously shown she can play right wing back. And when we've flipped systems this year, she would be really versatile within that. I think she can play on the wing. So I think her athleticism, her experience, I've heard so much positives about her character. So bringing that into the environment too, she was just really key for us to add depth to our squad.
Yeah, and then the last question I had is, I know it was a couple of weeks ago, but why was it important for you guys to bring back Mackenzie Doniak and Kaylee Reel to the team?
Yeah, 2 players that I, again, can't speak highly enough, because Mackenzie had a really tough preseason, got an injury, barely played. And then, you know, I had really honest conversations with Mackenzie, and she wasn't even in my top 6 strikers at one point. And her attitude, desire, work rate she ended up becoming my first player to come off the bench many times. She started games, and she was very, very worthy of a renewal of her contract because of her mentality and the way she's contributed within games. I thought she changed games when she came on at times. And Kaylee Reel's been a standout for me. It doesn't matter when I've had to put her on in games, whether she started, whether she's come off the bench, she's been so reliable. And it's because she's such a keen learner. You know, she's a real, you know, football learner. She comes to every meeting with a book. She asks questions. She's so coachable. And her level of improvement from pre-season to the end was incredible, and that's all down to her.
Thank you.
Annie, I saw your hand go back up. Did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I did. And I appreciate it. Casey, I just wondered, in your communication with Rachel and Danny, and, you know, these are 2 players who are coming from a difficult situation in Chicago. And I'm curious how San Diego and yourself have communicated with them that, you know, San Diego will be different, but also, you know, plan to prove that with action too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's it's your behaviors you live and breathe every single day, and I have to lead that. It's also the support mechanisms we put in place for players. So we have a full-time wellbeing coach on staff, who's here for the players, and that's her first and foremost role, is to support players in any way they need, whether it's goal setting, whether it's psychological support, whatever they need, she's there for them, and she helps build that rapport between staff and players. And I think it's about making sure that the players feel valued. It doesn't matter whether you're number 1 or number 26. Everybody's here to strive to learn, to improve, and everybody's as important as the next person. I'm not a coach that will scream and yell, because I don't believe in that. You don't do it in a maths or science classroom, so why do you do it on a sporting field? I will drive standards, absolutely, because I think standards are really important. But I'll try and do that always with the right way, with empathy, and with thinking about the human that's behind that playing shirt and what experiences they've had and where they've come from. And it's about what you live and breathe in terms of, like I said, your behaviors every single day. And it's also about me putting my hand up when I get it wrong, because I'm not perfect. I'm human. I make mistakes. But I'll put my hand up, and I'll always ask the players what I can do better. And my players have a huge voice in my environment, because this is their team. I'm just here to facilitate and help them get where they want to go.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Do we have any last questions for Casey before we jump off?
Yes, I do have one more question. Do you plan to do some tryouts in Mexico or even in San Diego for new players? Open tryouts, I mean.
No, I don't believe in open tryouts at the professional level, I'm afraid. It's our job to scout and recruit. And it's our job to make sure that we go out into the market and pick the players that fit our profile and the way we want to play. So there won't be any open tryouts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you everyone for jumping on. Just let me know if you have any other questions at media@wavefc.com. But thank you so much, and hopefully see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.